Hello everyone, I am Sutibra Malakar. I am an assistant professor employed in the Department of English District College. Today I am here to deliver a lecture on Ozymandias of Egypt, a poem by the renowned romantic Percy Bysshe Shelley. Let's know about the poet a little bit. P.B. Shelley, born in the year 1792, was one of the major English romantic writers of the 19th century who wrote both in prose and verse. Shelley had a very short literary career, and his A Defense of Poetry 1821 was considered one of the most popular and influential manifestos of Romanticism that defined Romanticism as a movement. His notable works were Ozymandias in 1818, Ode to the West Wind in 1819, To a Skylark in 1820, and his philosophical poems were Queen Mab 1813 and The Mask of Anarchy in 1819. Poetry to Shelley was an instrument of freedom and eradicating social justice to achieve social equality among the people. Social equality was a very core thing to Shelley, and he tried to advocate it to the last of his days. Shelley died in a boat accident off the coast of Pisa when his boat capsized on 8 July 1822 at the age of 29. So, about the poem. The poem was first published in 1818 in an issue of the Examiner and later included in Rosalind and Helen, a modern eclogue with other poems in 1819. Ozymandias of Egypt is in the sonnet form. A sonnet, for those who do not know, has, has 14 lines and is written in iambic pentameter and employs one of the several rhyme schemes present within the context, and it adheres to a tightly structured thematic organization. The word sonnet comes from the Italian sonetto, which means a little sound or song. The rhyme scheme of the poem is AB, AB, AC, DC, EDE, FEF. The poem was wrote in a friendly competition to Horace Mead, who has a sonnet by the same name and by the same topic. Now coming to the poem. Ozymandias of Egypt. I met a traveler from an antique land who said, two vast and trunkless lakes of stone stand in the desert. Near them, on the sand, half sunk, a shattered visage lies, whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command tell that each sculptor will those patience great, which yet survive, stamped on these lifeless things. The hand that mocked them, and the heart that fed, and on the pedestal these words appear. My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. Nothing beside remains round the decay of that colossal wreck. Boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch far away. By P.B. Shelley. This is the 1819 edition. So, what this poem means, let us go by a two stanza format, although there are no rhythm divisions within the written form of the poem. So, in the beginning, I am dividing the stanza uh, for ease of my explanation. So here, the narrators are three, the voices are three: one of a traveler, one of Ozymandias himself, and one of the poet Shelley. Here, the poet describes that he met a traveler from an antique land. By antique land, Egypt has been referred to here. Egypt has been known to be a cradle of civilization of the ancient world, where the greats and the colossals existed. In the poem, the traveler says that he has passed a desert while traveling through the antique land of Egypt, although not being mentioned with name. That two vast and trunkless lakes of stone stand in the desert. So he mentions that there is a stony statue, a statue carved out of stone, which stands in the desert, and there is no torso. There are only two legs, no visage, that is no face or head, and no torso. Only from the waist down does the statue stands erect. So when he looked around, the traveler, as he is narrating to the poet Shelley, he says that when he looks around, there he finds half sunk in the desert a shattered visage. A visage means the countenance or the face of a or the face of a uh, person or a statue. So he sees within the desert half sunk a shattered visage, a broken visage, a broken face made out of stone that have been ruined by time. But still, albeit it is ruined, the frown and the wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command of the statue, of the person whose statue was there, those emotions are still intact despite the pieces being shattered to a great extent. This shows or this exhibits the strength of creativity and imagination and the architectural capability of the sculptor who will read those patience of the person whose statue this is. The statue is of Ozymandias, as has been narrated or referred to in the latest stanza of the poem. So, here in the second stanza, it has been mentioned that there is a pedestal within the vast and trunkless lakes. Beneath them, there is a pedestal, and on the pedestal, it is written, "My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair." So these are the exact words, and in the voice of Ozymandias coming to us within the poem is the scornful and contemptuous attitude of Ozymandias, the authoritarian ruler. So now, when the traveler visits that land where the statue once was erected and stood tall with all its glory and with intent, it has been mentioned within the last two lines that round the decay of that colossal wreck means there is no statue remaining erect with all its glory. It has broken down, fragmented to pieces, shattered by time and nature. Only there is a colossal wreck. The word colossal as an adjective to the wreck has been to emphasize how great the statue was, how big it was, and how disastrous the consequence of the statue is. So, around the statue, nothing remains. Only two standing legs without a torso, without a body, and a shattered features, a shattered head that remains buried, half buried within the sand. And just the desert, the sands of the desert, they stretch far, far away. So, what I'm going to give you a brief explanation or elaboration. I'll not use the word explanation, as it is just my interpretation that I am speaking about. So, as Egypt has been very rightly attributed to us the antique land, the land of the birth of civilizations, as many historians opine, and the traveler has given it a just name, a just title. So the traveler who narrates to the poet Shelley that there are the legs standing and the faces is there half buried. It shows the attitude of Ozymandias of Egypt, who, by the way, let me mention that Ozymandias of Egypt is King Ramses II, who has been a historical figure and an emperor of the past of the ancients of Egypt. He was, in fact, an actual personality that lived in the annals of history. So, The sculptor, so the poet and traveler, as the traveler narrates to the poet, it has been mentioned that the hegemony, the authority, and the contemptuous and arrogant nature of the king who was in authority over his subjugated, over the lands, over the domains that he ruled, always had a very crude and very strong but disdainful attitude towards his contemporaries or his subjugated. But albeit having such power, albeit wielding such power, nothing remains. It is to be noted that King Ramses II, or Ozymandias of this poem, was well aware that his corporeal body would be demolished and ruined and destroyed by time. It would not remain. But he believed that to further his eternity or to make himself eternal, he knew that he cannot make it with the corporeal body. Therefore, he brought in a statue made of stone, an eternal material that would never be demolished as he believed at that instant. But what we see that he wanted to be remembered within the ages and all throughout the ages. But the statue that used to be a visible reminder of his presence is now gone. It no longer exists. All his power lie in ruins. But the sculptor, whose name even we do not know, remains in our cognition, in our consciousness, in our conscience, because the facial features on the visage, the shattered visage, were so well imprinted, were so well sculpted that it brought out the scorn, the frowned lips, and the cold command, the sneer that used to be an attribute of King Ramses II or Ozymandias of Egypt. Because this person was a creator, he could dissect vividly a living person to understand that person's emotions, that person's personality, and to imprint them in a vivid manner. It was his creativity, it was the creativity of the sculptor to make it an eternal face and to live through the statue of other person. His own creativity lives throughout. So what here has been mentioned is the imaginative and creative capacity that the sculptor had, and how well was that manifested in creating a lifelike statue, and the person whose life was there within the statue did not remain, but the credibility, the creativity, the imagination, and the skill of the sculptor remained throughout the ages because of the shattered faces whose countenance well bore those attitudes, those attributes that the king Ozymandias really possessed. So the power is all gone, but a colossal wreck remains. Nothing is permanent in this world. So let us go for the themes and meanings. There are primarily 5 themes and meanings that I can decipher from this poem. One is the first one, the first and foremost one is the ephemerality of the material versus the eternality of art, which have been referred to in 2 different sections. Ephemerality of the material can be seen in the actual decomposition of the material body, of the corporeal body of King Ramses II that no longer remains. In terms of power, that As we all remember, in the previous slide, we say that not that my name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my work, say mighty and despair. So this was, in fact, a warning or a competition or a challenge to his contemporary peers, the great kings of the ancient Egypt, that you are nothing in front of me. I am the tallest, I am the most glorious, and I will be eternal, and I will remain. So that was what Ozymandias wanted. But in reality, that power is nowhere to be seen because the structures that were the manifest forms of his power no longer exist. All have been turned into dust and stone and sand. Nothing remains of his creation, nothing remains of his power, nothing remains of his ego. Everything is fragmented, shattered, and gone. And eternality of art, we can see the theme of eternality of art through the sculptor, whose name even we do not remember or do not know, that his creativity and imagination have lived throughout the ages on board through the statue that he created. The art remains, may the artist be gone, art always will remain. Power versus imagination is another functional topic, functional scheme and theme of this poem, where power, in terms of authority of command, and imagination in terms of authority of creation, has been shown as a tassel that has always remained. Although the king was the supreme and the artist merely a vessel of his command, but the authority of command is now but gone because nothing of that statue that used to be a representation and a visible reminder of the authority that the king or the emperor once wielded is now but gone. But the authority of creation has always remained because the art still remains, the touches of art still remains. And the last theme that happens to be a primary concern within writers, authors, creators, authoritarian rulers, despots alike is the obsession to achieve immortality that even normal people aspire to. The obsession to achieve immortality has been dealt by Ramses II or Ozymandias by tackling amnesia through visuals as to perpetuate memory. Because every time we remember, every art we remember, every statue we remember creates a memory of the content of the subject of that structure or form. So Ozymandias understood that although his body might be gone, he can perpetuate his immortality through a stony structure that would live for ages, that would stay for ages, and this should help in tackling the amnesia of the normal people. We as people do have a very short-term memory. We forget everything. So visual representations are an extremely important part to integrate and elongate things that have been in the past, making it a bridge, making visual representations a bridge from the past to the present and even to the future per se. So this has been a strategy and a scheme used by Ozymandias to perpetuate his immortality, to perpetuate his existence. But it no longer exists because this world as well as the universe as well as everything would be ephemeral and only aesthetic till the eye of the beholder remains, would be permanent, would be invincible, would not be destroyed by anything, time or nature or anything. So with this, we'd like to give a brief gist of the literary techniques used within the poem. So the first literary technique or device used is alliteration. You might find it within the quote, snare of call command, CC, call command, has been used as an alliterative device where repetitions of the same sounds have been made to strengthen or emphasize an attribute of Ozymandias that he used to possess. Allusion is the second literary device used in this poem, where antique land has been used to refer to the land of Egypt, the domain of Egypt. Illusions are images formed through references, and irony has been used the most important technique. So we can find irony in look on my works, mighty and despair. In the poem, look on my works, mighty and despair have been used, but nothing but sand remains to a vast extent near the half remaining statue. Nothing remains, no structures, no construction, no architecture of the king that he used to show, that he wished to show to the posterity remains. And this is the irony of the statement on the pedestal. And with this, I'd like to conclude my presentation. I thank you for your patience and listening to the entire video. Thank you.